Freak the funk out. Say what? Freak the funk out. Freak the funk out. She. Freak the funk out. Freak the funk out. One more time. Freak the funk out. Freak the funk out.
Hello friends, welcome again to our another freaking conversation, and we have today Hazel Hape.
Sure.
Kiora, Hazel, and Morina, and welcome to our show.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you can start. What do you want to say?
Yeah, hey, look, thanks for the opportunity to come and share space with you, really, to have a conversation around anything and everything that sort of sits on our minds and our hearts and our narco. So, where do you want me to start, or how do you want us to start this conversation? Like, just we can just freestyle?
Freestyle, yeah. I would say,
Freestyle.
okay, the system isn't broken, it was built this way.
Okay.
What do you mean by that?
Okay. Yeah, I think just recently, a couple of weeks, I was at work, just having a shit day, trying to perform miracles for women and children and families and their whānau that we were supporting within the domestic violence space. And yeah, by the end of the day, I was just like feeling a shitload of, different vibes and energy around just why it just felt like for these families that the system's broken, and feeling like, well, actually, is it actually broken, or is it actually that the system has always been this way? So it's this way, and it's intended to be this way for a whole lot of people, depending on who you are, and where you fit out there in society. Which also contributes to the thinking around the haves and the have-nots, oppression, marginalisation, trauma,
Stigma, judgment.
judgment, stigma, all those kind of isms, like racism, sexism, imperialism, colonialism, capitalism. They're all designed to protect the machinery or the system. And it's been going on for like thousands of years. This is not new thinking. And so when I got home that day, and I was thinking like, oh my gosh, just really, Hoha really challenged, trying to find safe housing, trying to connect them with family, with whānau, with safe people, with housing, just thinking, what the F? And so I guess that was one of my...
You can swear, by the way.
Oh, so one of my resistances to coming here this morning was also about, every now and again, I do a bit of a rant on social media, and which is not as often as I used to when social media first started, or New Zealand started getting onto the superhighway, 2006, 2007. And was talking about anything and everything around like just free speaking into the challenges that affected me personally on a social, cultural, economic, environmental and political way. And so whereas shoot forward 12 years later, I very rarely make comments like the system it's not broken, it was built that way.
Like that way.
So even in my own life in the field of social justice, I feel like, that my voice, or my roro, which is my voice, is becoming somewhat moderated and silenced the longer I'm in this kaupapa of refuge for a whole range of reasons. But that particular night, after a while of not really, being on social media, I just dropped a little bit of a truth bomb to myself, really, and being aware that we're like, 90 days out from elections, just driving past. That's the other thing, like when you're working when you're working on the ground with people who are impoverished or experiencing poverty of the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit, you have to start asking, well, what's that all about? You know, you don't just
Yeah.
get born into this world and you're impoverished. Like that comes as a result of multiple lived experiences around all the isms that we're affected by or subjected to. So for me, I was just like, I'm sick of our whānau being homeless. I'm sick of our whānau being landless, having no jobs, all the
Yeah,
unemployment.
and sense of like belonging, identity. Yeah,
Mm,
and
mm.
people are struggling. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not never ending. Because since I am in New Zealand and I was studying social work, biculturalism in social work, that's what like biculturalism. But in some way, it's not happening. I can't see like it's really people are trying their best to biculturalism in social work, whatever they do. But as you say, it's right that you are seeing your whānau struggling, homeless, jobless. It needs to end now because I was reading, studying all the theories, all and history all the time, and it's improving, but still there is a gap. Yeah, and I agree. What you say.
Yeah, so and I support what you say too as well, Rupal. And so that's where I was having one of those moments, and that's also the reason why I was like, I don't really know if I want to participate in this conversation. But then the reason why I'm here is that I love the name of this podcast. For many years, I'd been talking to friends and family about, oh, geez, why isn't there a lot of like other options to tune into frequencies around media, around radio, around podcasting? So, on a personal level, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I watch a lot of podcasts. I listen to podcasts, and it's also to do. I'm an audio learner. Like I don't really, visually. I'm not a visual person, but I like to hear the voice, the nuances. I feel like I tune into that more intuitively. So when I was thinking about it, I thought, I'll come up and sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because audio is also another medium, but visual is a real, as I believe that's a big impact to the audience, that and body language, whatever your facial expression, whatever you say, have a better impact for the change. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, and tell me about voting, like why voting is important.
Well, I think that I don't know if I necessarily agree. So I feel like I support that having a voice is important.
Voices.
But a voice can be a voice in multiple spaces, not necessarily just in terms of voting. So while I have a bit of conflict and tension around what is the real value of voting, I continue to choose to vote. I continue to encourage my family members to vote, but I also encourage them to, not so much do research, but if they are interested in voting, that they vote for someone or a purpose around issues that are important, that resonates with them. Whether it's environmental issues, social issues, political issues, issues like housing, issues like jobs, issues like being able to build, issues like education. And so I tend to leave it in that space.
Yeah, because voting is a personal preference to vote. Like every individual have that own personal preference to vote, but if you want some changes into the policy and societal changes, then voting is important. That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
Then
I think it's
change.
Yeah, I think it's important, but I think that we've got to get better, older voters, like communicating and articulating to youth voters,
Youth
like what's
voices.
the real value, you know,
Values.
what does it actually mean for them when you look at, they could still vote, and many still do, and many of their votes still go to a system that is, you know, philosophically or, you know, conceptually still broken, you know, still part of a broken system. And then there are just as many young people who don't vote. So I know in my own family,
Yeah,
they
even,
know.
my family, my son, we
You don't
try to.
I don't vote.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I don't know why young people are not trusting the system. That's why they are not voting, because they say some of their views are that it's not going to change anything, even if we vote.
And like you just said it before, so I don't know why some people don't vote, not trusting the system.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at like incarceration, you look at homelessness, you look at unemployment, you look at, you know, landlessness, you look at, you know, that's why they don't vote, you know.
Yeah, because
many people still
even
don't
if
vote.
people they don't trust, and it's change is happening, but not in a, they lost the trust in the system.
Yeah.
That's why, and they believe that it's not going to change anything. It will be the same. But that kind of mindset will change slowly. We are hoping. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to think that a long time ago, but I'm a bit of a realist now. So yeah, even though I vote, even though I encourage my family members to vote, in my mind, I'm really clear that the machinery will always look after the machinery. So therefore, the status quo will always be the status quo. You know, it sounds really warped and really, but it's the truth.
It's true.
Yeah, this sits on thousands and thousands of years of a machinery, and like whether you want to start getting into like reptilian conversations, or there's so many different ways we can jump into this.
Yeah.
Like I know that we should know that the machinery is designed in a way that the machinery, whatever it looks like, smells like, and feels like through time and space, will take care of that machinery. And so I think that's some of the conversations young people are actually having, are already intuitively aware of, that I don't think that us adult parents or older voters are not necessarily tuned into. That young people, they're aware of what's going on, and they're actually questioning, what is the value of voting if the machinery is just going to continue to be the machinery. So we still have, 1% of billionaires owning, 90% of the world's, resources, wealth, etc. So why would they want to, vote into that system? So there's that. There's also that how like populations, we are seen as like, are we economic units that are part of a financial slavery system that actually, when we're born into this world, that we're marked with a system and a product view that actually holds up the machinery or protects the machinery. And so these are conversations where I'm like, when I'm in my head, or when I'm with people who are like-minded or are willing to explore, be curious, it's not that we're going down rabbit holes, but we can. And I think it's those conversations when you maybe go down a rabbit hole that you can start actually, start to see, feel, and heal some real, freaky shit, really, that people either still go down, they'll get lost down there, or some will come up and go, back to the surface, And it's those kind of conversations that I enjoy with people. I don't necessarily participate in a lot these days because my work keeps me busy at Refuge. I know some of my thinkings and my views would probably not, not so much sit well, but would have people thinking like, what the heck? What the heck is
Yeah,
Hazel
so what
into or up to? Or what
yeah.
kind of planet is she on? But all I'm saying is that as a wahine and as a mum, I'm curious. Like I'm interested in what has happened, past, present, and future.
Future, yeah.
Because I think that's really important. Because I think once you start questioning or going, and you just kind of start going with the flow, I think you're pretty much fucked, really. And so I think that you have to, doesn't matter what you're doing, you have to basically be asking questions. What if this? What about that? Who this? Who that?
Yeah.
So I tend to channel that kind of thinking in my work at Refuge, So like that post that I did, it's relevant to my work at Refuge, but also it's relevant to people all around the world.
Yeah,
like-
because it's like we are living in a parallel world. Like one is with the what you said, like a system and a machinery and on, and one is like a humanity, kindness and soul, mind, and like true to ourselves. And so these two some is like that this at the moment. So we are trying to, but it's not going to happen. So good that you came here and express that view of like
I want to ask you something.
yeah,
How do you feel about the two-party system that's not only in place here but the world over? Like the two main parties. Is it?
Well, are you talking about the New World Order or?
Oh well.
you should come here and sit with us and
In
then
general.
start talking in the
In
frame.
general, but like the two-party matrix that they have across the world, it's like red and blue.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think it just it speaks into actually so in terms of like red and blue, so like let's just say blue, and I'm just talking generically here, that blue speaking into some generic narratives around what's the word, realism.
Realism,
Political realism.
capitalism.
Yeah, and everything that comes into that space, and then you've got the reds that speaks into idealism. And so I had done some political studies back in the days, and I found that paper really helpful to just help me go, put things into, yeah, got it, because I was like, So I think that's quite concerning. Like I actually have concerns with that. Like I just think that, it's a bit like, like rich and poor, like it speaks into issues of like colour, into race.
Yeah,
into
so that's why
economics,
it's a parallel
politics,
system.
and so on.
Parallel.
So which one of these two across the world are the lesser of the two evils, really? And so there's pros and cons, benefits and disadvantages in either worldview. So when we get born into this world, and we don't necessarily, we aren't born into either, then and depending on like nationhood, where you are, like wealth and that culture, what your lenses that you're looking through, this is also a reason why like other political narratives emerge, whether it's, socialist or like sovereignty, or whether it's anarchist narratives as well. Like this is why we exist in the space, to almost, I think, to push out and resist and critique, and rebel, and to deconstruct or reconstruct the narratives of these two, main political paradigms that are worldwide, like machinery,
Yeah, machinery
Not
and
just
humans.
here, but America, Russia.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Like parallel
Australia.
machineries and humans and systems and here mind, body, soul, humanity, kindness, everything. So at the moment here.
So yeah, I mean that's good, a real good point. And so even with what you've just asked, Dave, is like, yeah, it's crazy. Like I just saw the Labour Party's little 2.5 minute manifesto, like just symbols going boom, 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 boom. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. And then I've seen some stuff from the National Party. Then I've seen some stuff from the Greens. So
Greens and
there's just all these, everyone's, positioning. You're seeing a whole lot of nasty stuff in the media, and you just think, oh my gosh, But I mean, it's someone has to take everyone has an individual, or I believe, an individual autonomous right
yeah,
to
individual
have a
rights.
voice, but you can have your voice in different spaces. It doesn't have to be putting it into vote like into the political voting system, and people are going to have reasons why. There are many other people who choose to be political and live political lives in ways that's not actually about feeding into the machinery.
Yeah, you can do it in other way.
Yeah.
You can express your voice in other way. Like you can, yeah, there are other ways there. Yeah.
What do you think? I just heard this phrase recently. Is that politics is? Are you familiar with pro wrestling, like WWF?
Mm-hmm.
It is WWF, but with really high stakes.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing it right now, right? It was as soon as that 100 days countdown dropped on the airway podcast media, it's just like, here you go. We're in that right now, and I was just briefly listening to, I think, some disclosures around our MP that disclosed information around, was it COVID-19 just recently, and Todd Muller, and
Yeah.
so that's exactly what you're talking about, eh? It's just, it's crazy. But what I'm always thinking about is, why do we as human beings, like, what is it about this, that we have to start behaving in our lowest of our lowest? Like, so where are all the good people? Where are all the good politicians? But then at the same time, the other side of me starts thinking, well, it doesn't really matter, because once they're in the machinery, then it all gets, they're going to get warped, or either buy into the system, to become assimilated, programmed,
You have to mold
deprogram
in
themselves out and say, I'm out of here, And so I'm just saying that is one of the things I am grateful for, and that has contributed towards my views around social justice and social movements and Indigenous politics, is around being mentored by amazing Māori and non-Māori people around just the narrative or the conversations around politics. It's just that since 2013, I was just like, oh fuck this, I'm over this, I'm just like going to do my own thing. I might vote, but I'm not going to get out and get involved in too many campaigns, and because I've been part of a few, I'll be honest.
everybody.
Door knocking, doing pamphlets, voting up for them,
For
hosting,
Mana Party
cup of
or
teas. So Māori parties, Māori Party,
Party.
and then I spent some time around the Māori Party and the Mana movement.
Mana movement.
Yeah. So around those two areas there, and then the last elections, I decided to split my vote, and so it was Māori Party and the Green Party.
Yeah, Green Party.
I knew, unfortunately, the Māori Party was on the way out.
Yeah, they like, but now they are like.
Well, I've been listening to them with interest. I don't know. Like what I am pleased to see is, I'm really stoked to see youth, some really intelligent, woke, questioning, inquiring youth, having some really powerful and in-your-face conversations from all walks of life. So that's what really excites me in terms of them questioning and critiquing potential members of the Party Māori
Maori party.
around a range of issues. I've been really impressed with listening to those conversations.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, and yeah, and I know that there are lots of great Maori leaders and academics. They made such a big changes. So yeah, so looking forward to that changes coming after this election. I hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. We'll see what happens. I do want to say, just before we finish, like this morning, we were talking about voice. So, being back, I've been at Refuge, Tauranga Women's Refuge, for about 16 years. So, a lot of my political views and social justice views have been strengthened, supported, mentored, and developed and binded in a women's refuge space. Because we're very clear about the personal is political and the political is personal. That violence is a breach of human rights.
Yes.
Therefore, that too is also a political issue. So, being within the refuge kaupapa for me has been an amazing yet challenging space to basically grow and be critiqued and consider knowledge around social issues, justice issues, health, well-being as it relates to economies, women and children, their families and their whānau, and their tāne, or even their wahine for that fact, So that's been really important, but what it's also meant that I've been back at the refuge for coming up 3 years, and I do feel that my willingness to, that's my stuff, to participate in these conversations are not as often as I used to between early 2000s and 2015. So, but I tend to have them more with people in circles that I'm involved in, or allies, or comrades in the different spaces that I've been in, which have always been around the pursuit of justice, and critiquing what that looks like, smells like, sounds like, and feels like for us with my allies, whether they're Māori, Indigenous allies, non-Māori, in that space at all ages. Ka pai.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
So, anything you want to say? Or freak out? Freak out, the word.
Yeah, I think my freak out is, I just believe that every person, if you just bring it here in Aotearoa, it's a basic right to be able to have a warm roof over your head.
Yes, that's
Somewhere
very important.
to be safe,
Yeah, very
to
safe.
be nourished, to be fed, to be kept warm and to be loved. Just as I believe the same as with having income,
Yeah,
a job,
employment, job.
a vacation, to strengthen and support themselves and their families and whānau. I think that's important. I think that those are my two basic freakouts in terms of that's what every New Zealander that's living in this country should be provided with, or is entitled to. And my other point would just be that I'm an auntie of two nieces whose father is from India, a niece and a nephew whose father from Bangladesh. So my freak out for them is I want them to basically, while they hold, dual ethnicity around being tangata whenua, and also having their Indian
culture.
their culture, is I'm always looking for spaces to take them to involve themselves in learning about their father's cultures. That's really important to me, and I'm staunchly protective of them and their voices, and so but it's a freak out for me because I'm always trying to make sure that they've got access to their other cultural identity, their cultural rituals, supporting my sisters and my nieces and nephews with supporting them in that space. but I don't necessarily talk about that publicly. But it's a freak out because I know that the marginalisation and the little snippets of racism that they get exposed to as these 4 young people with dual heritage. So I'd like to see that in the future that that I can support them to have access to
their culture,
their
culture, yeah. So there is a big gap as well, and as you said, racism is there, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
Which is kind of what me and we talked about briefly before we started around what you've been exposed to. Like you might want to wrap it up in white privilege, but actually, like if you just name it, that person, I don't know, you might want to cut that part if you take I don't want to do it, you might want to
yeah. So racism is there.
Racist or sexist.
And still there.
You feel it.
And you can feel it. And then I had a personal experience recently. So is there, and it's still getting worse actually.
And if you feel unsafe,
unsafe.
It's a human. It's in our DNA to feel ourselves. Our cellular DNA has able to tune into feelings of racism, sexism, feeling unsafe without even that person having to speak. It's just a human, a frequency that you just feel it before it just starts to manifest in its physical state.
Yeah, so it's.
So if that's what you were feeling from this person, that's exactly what was happening.
Yeah, it is happening.
And
Anybody,
it's not cool.
Not me, but it's anyone. Yeah. So.
Which I was like, tell me that person's name and I'll have a chat to them.
But it's a lesson learned. So it's good. Yeah. So having a different experiences in life and getting out of that experience and learning is it's a big thing. So that's cool.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast.
And it's good that we need this kind of conversation.
We have to have you on again, and I'll host, and we can talk about reptilians. and the New World Order. I go deep with that stuff.
Whenever I start talking about that, my family and friends. Anyway, can we just talk about this?
But
we don't want to have this conversation. No.
Yeah, so sometimes something like that limit us to speak.
But
freely, like from the heart, and you have to suppress that feeling and openness and whatever you want to express. Like you said, machinery and all the system.
Well,
people,
but it's 100% true,
And then you just suppress yourself and you hold everything you are holding inside, and you want to take it out, but you can't sometimes.
Yeah,
so
I think
it's really hard.
Some of the comrades, like I know here in Tauranga, Moana, that many of the my comrades and allies, of the past, they don't live here anymore, so I don't have those opportunities to engage, and then I'm very kind of like vigilant about who I'm really going to have conversations there in terms of deep diving. Because sometimes, or most times, it's just too much for people who just want to live in a, sunshine,
a lot of people,
sky's blue.
A lot of people are afraid to go deep because it will really challenge their worldview.
Challenge their worldview. That's true. And it's not easy, but it's everybody has a right to express their voice, and so that's why. Don't forget to subscribe this channel, friends, and we will bring you more freaking conversation. So keep watching this space, and thank you, Hazel.
No, thank you.
Freak the funk out. Say what?